점수 잡는 hackers.
Welcome back. Let's move on to the calculator section of test 3, and we'll be going over the first 19 questions together. So what do you guys need? Your calculator, right? So take that out and let's go over these questions together. So let's start with question number 1. So we're given a basic pie chart and it's representing the 3 percentages of the individual providers. And it's involving the concept of basic ratios and proportions, right? And what are they asking for? A company's market share is the percent, and all we have to do is look at the very last part. The ratio of the share of 1 to 2, 1 to 2, is given or divided into a ratio of 3 to 2. And what are they asking for? The specific percentage referring to provider 1's market share. So let's go back to this pie chart and we can see right away that the 3 values that they actually give us have a sum of what? Can you guys tell me what this value refers to? It becomes 40 in this case. So we know that the remaining 60% must be shared into a ratio of 3 to 2. And they're looking for the ratio for provider number 1 and the part that corresponds to 3. So what do you have to do? All you have to do is multiply by 3/5 for the entire expression. And can you tell me what the final answer becomes? 36, right? Very good. So the answer is C. You circle that and you move on. And number 2. It was a good warm-up type of question. Let's read this one. Which one of the following number lines represents the solution to the inequality? You can't actually use your calculator for this, right? Another inequality type of a question. So let's group the variables together. Whichever involves x, I don't like my negative value, so move it to the left side. And right-hand side becomes a negative 24. You guys understand, right? So what happens if we divide for both sides? X is the region that is greater than a negative 6 value. So when we look at the answer choices, I like B, and that's about it, right? So all you have to do is circle that answer choice and move on. What happens if we have something that looks exactly like this, except they circled the value of negative 6? It would actually refer to greater than equal to, which is not applied to our case, okay? Moving on to number 3. So they give us a basic setup, and it's a long word problem. Should we read this together? Water is vital to human health. As we already know, average person should consume approximately 2.5 ounces of water per hour. So let's just simplify this. One person should drink 2.5 ounces of water per hour. This is, let's just write water here. Okay? And the remaining part, because of salt in it, seawater actually dehydrates the human body and should not be consumed. And this is why boats must carry fresh water when they are going on long trips. And the specific question, suppose that a sailboat is traveling at an average speed of 4 nautical miles, let's just write miles, per hour. So this is the rate expression for the sailboat that we're involving. They can move how much? 4 miles in 1 hour. With 3 people on board, let's just write this down. And the trip is 232 nautical miles. This is the actual distance, and let's just refer this part as my rate expression. What is the minimum number of ounces of water here that we should actually stock before leaving? So how do I find the number of hours it is going to take for this entire trip? We can simply come up with a ratio expression. So 232 miles. And how many hours does this represent? Can you guys take your calculator, and what do you have to do? You move the variable so it becomes 4x equals to 232. You can validly conclude that x has a value of 58. And the units are hours, right? So how do we finalize or finish this question? We know that one person consumes this much per hour, so we know that the water should be this much for one person. And we have 3 people involved, so all you have to do is calculate this using your calculator. Very good. So can you guys tell me what numerical value this actually corresponds to? Do you guys get 435? Okay. You circle C and you move on. That was it. So let's do number 4. It seems like a basic representation of a parabola, and they're giving some restrictions for the actual variables of A and B. A has an exact value of 0 and B is negative. Which one of the following could be the graph that represents the general form in the factored form? So another question involving a basic concept of quadratics. How do you approach this? Well, first of all, I know that whatever makes this expression 0 is a solution, or the x-intercept of my parabola, and equivalently it holds true for the right-hand side. So when they say that x or a is equal to 0, I know that my first solution is 0. So the parabola must meet at a origin of 0, 0. That's how we can eliminate answer choices C and D right away. The remaining graphs do meet at 0, 0. And how do I finalize this? If my x minus b is also a solution to this, but in this case, if b has a negative value, then overall, I know that it simplifies to what? It should meet on the left-hand side of the y-axis. That's why when we're comparing the two graphs, my left-hand side, the answer choice A, would have a negative solution. The one on the right has a positive solution. Therefore, my final answer becomes A in this case, because my other solution is going to have a negative value. Do you guys see the difference here? That's it, okay? Let's move on to number 5 here, and we have a graph. So how do we approach a graph initially? I told you from our previous lecture for test 2, you read the title and the respective axes, right? So the title states that diabetes prevalence and x-axis represents the inactivity rate given as percentage. How much of it is actually inactive? And the diabetes incident rate also represented in terms of the percentage. So when we're looking at this scatter plot, what are they telling us? They have all this background information, and let's just look at the second sentence. The scatter plot shows the relationship between percent of people whose daily activity qualifies them as inactive and incidence rates of diabetes, as we already interpreted from the given chart. Okay, so we didn't really necessarily have to read the entire background information. The line of best fit is also shown, and the question begins here. Which one of the following best represents the meaning of the y-intercept of the line of best fit in the context of this question? It simply means involving the terms of the diabetes percent incidence and etc. So let's go back to our chart here. What does the y-intercept represent? It's wherever it meets the y-axis. So the value for my x would have a 0 here. Notice how my x-axis represents inactivity rate. So what does it mean to have inactivity rate equals to 0? Doesn't this simply mean that there is a 100% activation, right? It's going the other way around. So all you have to do is skim through the answer choices and look for the correct description. When the predicted incident rates entire country is considered active, this is the correct description, and you circle that one, okay? When we skim through the remaining answer choices, inactive entire country, incorrect description, who the predicted percent of people who will be active when incidence rate of diabetes is 0%, this is talking about the other concept of x-intercept, right? Good. Predicted percent of people who will be inactive when the incidence rates of diabetes is 0%, and we can see that it's involving the similar concept, but A was the correct description, okay? You circle that and you simply move on. Number 6. Another quite long word problem, but I think it won't be that bad since it's popping up for number 6 question. Okay, let's read this together. At a grocery store, we have a person, her name is what? Gigi, okay? She's buying 3 items, apples, magazine, and a gallon of milk. Apples, how are they priced? By weight per gallon or per pound. And I think this is the vital information, the crucial information involved. There is no sales tax on food. So among the 3 items, which one or which 2 correspond to food? Apples and milk. These 2 have no tax. So let's write no tax and no tax here. So magazine does involve tax. And if the total cost is given by this expression, what are they asking for? What does this expression most likely represent? So we can see that we're involving linear equations because there is equation and it has a variable raised to the exponent of 1. So how do we reinterpret this? Since we know that we already know apples are rated as per pound price, so I guess whichever pound we select, we're incorporating the per pound price. So this would be my apple price. So with the 2 remaining numbers, how do I interpret the second term given? Look at the value of 1.07 given in front. Doesn't this simply mean taking the original value and increasing it by 7%? Maybe a concept of tax involved? because we're multiplying the original numerical value, increasing it by a certain percentage. So we can see right away, maybe the 4.49 corresponds to the gallon of milk price with no tax involved, and the magazine is $3.99, and you have to incorporate the tax. Therefore, the correct description is magazine price with tax incorporated. Okay, so you circle C, and let's just move on. So number 7, what does it state? So when a homeowner hires a contractor to renovate a bathroom, they're charged for labor and materials because they have to buy their own stuff, right? I guess they charge that fee. So by law, the contractor can charge sales tax on the materials, but not on the labor. Okay, so I guess this is an important concept. Let's just divide them. Material represented as M. Labor, we can incorporate tax to the materials fee. If the contractor quotes the homeowner, it simply means they charge them $3,000 for materials. Ooh, it's quite expensive. $3,000 and $40 per hour. So they're given at a rate of $40 per hour. And sales tax on the state is 5.5% of tax. Which equation represents the total cost? What type of question does this correspond to? Another equations algebra type, so we represent this as linear equations. So when looking through the answer choices, I simplify the question once again, having the crucial information. All the numerical values, we already extrapolated on the right-hand side. So let's just summarize this together. Since we are only involving tax to our materials, which was given in terms of $3,000, and how do you incorporate the increase of 5.5%? You would multiply by 1.055. Very good. So 3,000 material fee, 1.055. Is this the only answer choice? And then you finalize it with the $40 per hour rate, therefore 40 each. That's it. So you circle D, and then you move on. Okay?